This is the last of a 5-part series that I'm putting together that I've sourced from a leading academic, a principal of a single-sex girls' school. And he has a lot of interesting things to say, and his experience and knowledge is very comforting because it aligns to what most of us have been thinking and talking about. One of the things that he says is that academic and social outcomes and well-being are generally better for boys and girls in single-sex educational environments. He also says that whilst single-sex schools are not suitable for everyone, they are a great option, and it's important to be able to choose which educational format suits your child and your family goals and dreams. We know that single-sex schools have just as much right to exist as co-ed schools, as well as all the other types of schools. As first educators, the parents should be able to choose and pay for an education that they want for their children. As we mentioned in a previous episode, children develop at different rates, and it is important to have them in an environment that will foster and nurture their growth and development as and when the need rises and they are ready for that next step up function in their growth and development. Expert educators know that going from childhood to adolescence is a challenging time, and we see children, according to this educator, in Year 9 struggling, but when it comes to Year 11 and 12, you see them flourishing and growing in leaps and bounds. Once again, it is important to give people time and space to grow and make the most of their potential. The academic goes on to use an interesting analogy to describe the basic differences between boys and girls when it comes to growth and development, and highlights the key obvious differences between boys and girls and the benefits that can be derived when these differences are acknowledged and respected and not swept under the carpet and ignored. He said that it is only natural for boys to take up more room when sitting on the lounge compared to girls. Boys are bigger, boys are sometimes louder, and it's a natural thing that occurs at different parts of their development. Boys take up more room when sitting on the lounge compared to girls. Whilst a male is not trying to be a problem, the fact remains that on average, boys tend to take up more space than others, and the others sometimes need to be able to somehow accommodate for this less space that's made available. And this is, a reference to boys and girls when they share the same classroom, how boys can sometimes speak over girls, be louder, and just a little bit more intimidating. So that's one of the challenges that educators have in a co-ed educational environment. And for this reason, it is more fruitful to have separate educational spaces so that the boys can have their own lounges and the girls can have their lounges, where they can take up as much space and as much room as they want, and they can choose to sit on the lounge without having to accommodate for anyone else. One of the beauties of single-sex schools is that boys and girls get a comfortable seat at the lounge without having to ask for it. In a girls' school, Girls get all the attention in the classroom without having to compete with boys. And what we're saying here is that we're not saying that girls and boys are treated differently for their whole lives. What we're saying here is that during those formative years where they're growing and developing and sensitive, it makes sense to be able to separate the boys from the girls, not all boys from all girls, but to make a space and to make it available so that parents can choose what educational format suits their family needs and their child. The fact that Newington College is going co-ed is disappointing to me, because what I see happening is we're taking a world-class school, a college that has 160 years of leadership, of outstanding outcomes, traditions, and just a wonderful vibe, and we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And what I would like to see is for the school council to reverse their decision on co-ed and to respect and honour the place and the need and the choice of parents to be able to do what all families have been able to do in the 160 years of the Newington history, for them to be able to choose a single-sex educational format for their sons. There are plenty of co-ed schools about. The majority of schools in and around Sydney are co-ed. There are co-ed public schools, there are co-ed Catholic schools, there are co-ed private schools. There is just a plethora of choices for families who want to send their children to co-ed schools. But there's only one Newington College, and there are very, very few single-sex boys' schools. Growing up in these days as a boy, it's much more difficult than what it would have been a decade ago or 50 years ago. And that's why I say we need to preserve and to maintain the ability for families to get to enjoy a Newington College upbringing so that it can set them up for their future. It can set them up for being great fathers, great husbands, great peers, great workers, great Australians. So, in a nutshell, let's fight this insane decision and do what's right for the boys and the future sons of Newington, without, of course, being negative to girls. But there are great schools like MLC, PLC Sydney, Abbotsleigh, where I sent my daughters to. I've experienced those schools, and they are absolute fantastic educational institutions for girls. So why would you send a girl to Newington when you can send your daughter, your girl, to an outstanding, established single-sex school? And there are quite a few of them around, and they're all highly recommended.